What's up, everyone? We're going to talk about double closing today because I have mentioned double closing a lot in my videos. I've explained it when I did the contract video of all the contracts, but I still get asked a lot of questions. What is double closing? Why do you do it? Do I need to do it? I'm new at this. People just confused. Do I need to send that contract along with an assignment? So today we're going to cover it, break it down, simplify it, because a lot of you all just overthinking this whole process. So double closings a way instead of assignment of contract where I'm assigning my rights of a contract. Double closing, I'm actually owning that property for usually it's less than 60 seconds. So I'll go into detail, watch, learn, take notes, and hopefully I cover every question you have about double closing. So double closing. I do a lot of double closings. Why do I do double closings? That's because I don't have traditional cash buyers all the time. A lot of people think I have this huge network of cash buyers that just keep buying my deals, and that's not necessarily true. I have a lot of people who have cash to buy deals in my market, but they don't know what an assignment of contract is. So when I advertise the property, I get people to say, hey, I'm interested in your house you have for sale. I can't say, oh yeah, well, I don't technically own the house, I just have it under contract, and I'm going to sign the contract to you, and you're going to close on it with the homeowner. Well, the first thing that's going to come to most people's mind is, this dude's out here scamming people. He's selling houses he don't own. So that's when double closing comes into play. How I have had success with it is, with my title company, they use the cash buyer's in money to pay my seller. Technically, my cash buyer and me at the title company close first, and then he has his money there, he pays, and then me and the seller close. Now, is it a risk? Because you're thinking, well, how can a end buyer close with you when you haven't closed with the homeowner itself? And so how does that work? Well, it is. It's a risk. But the title company always asks me, is the seller, do we need to worry about the seller in a double closing? Will they show up, or is this something like they may flake on? Because they ask me, because of the relationship I've built with them, they trust me. And I'm like, oh no, they're going to show up, they just want their money. Because it's a risk on the title company to close with an end buyer and me, and then the seller and me. They do that to help me though, because that way that money from the end buyer is already in escrow, and it's there to pay my seller. So I tell them, like, oh, they'll pay, no worries. If I have any concerns about my seller flaking on me, I'll tell the title company, like, well, they've kind of been wishy-washy. They'll be like, okay, well, we're going to close with you and the seller first, and we'll have the buyer here and just put them in a different office, or the seller and the buyer will close simultaneously in two different offices. Sometimes it's just they do virtual, so it really don't matter. The seller either won't show up at closing or the buyer won't, and they'll just email or everything to them. The people print them off like I do, sign everything, get what needs to be notarized, and then puts it back in the mail for overnighting back into FedEx. I think it's FedEx I use. Sometimes it's UPS, but it's mainly FedEx. And then they'll have all the documents for closing. That's how I do virtual double closing. I never have to physically be there in another state. So the seller and the buyer will either close simultaneously if I feel like the seller may flake or, complain, or the buyer will close before and then the seller closes. Regardless, my title company always has my paperwork because I do virtual closings. So I am never there. I tell them, like, oh, they have the paperwork, they have the money, I won't be there. That's what I tell the seller. I'm like, oh, okay. So that's why a lot of times the seller won't physically go to closing either, because I tell them I'm not going to be there. They have the money. You can either swing by, pick up a check and sign, or they can email you everything. You can overnight it back to them. They can wire the money in your account, overnight you a check. I try to talk them out of even going to closing, just because I let them know I'm not going to be there. So, you don't have to show up if you want. Today's technology with COVID that happened, virtual closings happen all the time. I try to ease their mind and persuade them not to even want to go to closing, so that way it's just an easier double closing all the way around for everybody. Now, that's why I double close, is because my cash buyers won't always know when an assignment of contract is. Now, another reason to double close, it's you may make too much money. There is investors out there, sad to say, the deal could be great. The price, they're like, yeah, that's an awesome price. I'm going to make, the repairs ain't bad. I'll be able to get this on the market in 30 or 60 days and get a 25% profit once I list it on the MLS. But then they see how much you're making on the assignment side. And even though they're going to make a bunch of money, they get greedy. And they're like, well, you're making 20 grand just for bringing me the deal? That's nuts. I'm not paying that. Well, if you would have double closed, they would have never seen you as making 20 grand. Therefore, they would still been happy and stoked and wanted you to send them more deals. Now, is this with every cash buyer? No, it's not. Is it with a lot, though, based on my experience? Yes. There's a lot that are just, they're greedy. They don't feel like you should get that much meat on the bone for you. Even though finding these off-market deals at a steep discounts not easy for a lot of people. And obviously, if it was, they would be doing it themselves. So it's just more of they don't appreciate of what you do. So I've had a couple do that, and I just stick to double closing. When I have any doubt, double close, and that's what I stick to. Now I have cash buyers I can assign to, 10, 20,000, 30,000, and they won't bat an eye at it because they're happy it's a deal for them. But I have a lot that it's just better to double close. I pay one set of closing fees, so that's the next thing is closing costs. My cash buyer always pays closing costs unless I negotiate with them and say I'll cover the closing. That means I'm paying 2 closing costs when I double close. When I pay closing costs, I'm only paying the legal fees for them to get the paperwork for one of the closes. It's usually $300 and some bucks, and then I pay recording fees. It ends up being, now my first deal was $300 and some, and then here recently it's been about $425 that I actually take out of I don't physically pay them up front. They just take it out of my portion of the profits. So I'm still out no money. But I pay for them to do the paperwork and for the recording fee for the deed, because like I said, I get deeds mailed to me all the time because I actually own that property for a day, but it's more like 5 minutes. And I don't have to pay for title searches or warranty on the title because my cash buyer pays for all that. We don't have to do 2 title searches for a closing that happens within minutes. So the end cash buyer pays for the title search. They pay for all their regular closing fees, recording. If they want title search insurance, they pay for all that. I don't get insurance because I'm literally selling the house. I'm not owning it but for a few minutes. So that's what it cost me. It cost me about $425 for a double close. It comes on my portion of the deal. It's just, I'll eat $425 any day to not have a stressful, well, you're making too much money. Or the seller, happens to see how much I'm making. And like, you're not buying my place. Why are you making this much money? I don't want to sign now because you're making 20 grand. So it's just how I communicate with everybody, because I do it on virtual and I do it mainly via text. I rarely have to cold call anyone or pick up the phone and talk to a seller. I just text is what always works. It's just easier that way. My title company's awesome though. So there's several title companies that double close, and then there's a lot that don't. So it's just, you have to find a title company that works for you. And that's kind of how double closing works. There is a separate contract for double closing, and I'll go over that. I'll show you it, where to find it on my website and all that stuff. But the double closing contract is also called a BC contract, which means buyer contract. That contract's not assignable. So the BC contract protects the seller. Now, if you think about it, our purchase agreement that we give to sellers, it protects us as a buyer. It gives us an escape clause, and we can get out of the earnest money, and we don't have to place earnest money until close of escrow. Well, the BC contract, because on a BC contract, you are the seller, even though you don't own the property, but you will by the time you get to closing, you'll be the owner of it because you're double closing. So you're the seller, so this contract protects you as a seller. It's not assignable. It has a really stiff, non-refundable earnest money deposit policy. It's a really tight-knit contract so that if a buyer backs out, they lose all their earnest money. The only way they don't lose it's if you just can't produce a clear title, which obviously you'll know that way before you ever get to closing. And if you can't get clear titles because the seller can't get one, so therefore you're not going to buy the house anyways from the seller because they won't produce a clear title. But yeah, BC contract, it protects you as the seller for a double close. Don't get it confused to send that to your sellers, because if you do, that contract's not assignable. You won't be able to sign it, and you have to put earnest money within, I think, 24 or 48 hours. It's just a really tight contract. So that BC contract's double closing, you're the seller. Just remember that. Let's go over the contract. I'll show you where to get it and kind of show you what it looks like. So that's pretty much everything about double closing, when and why you should do it, how it works. You can do double closing in Oklahoma. You can do it in Illinois. Them are the two states that you can't assign contracts in. Illinois, you can do one contract a year, then you got to be licensed. So in Oklahoma or Illinois, you can double close. The next option for those two states, because I get asked this all the time, is you can sell the LLC, which meaning every time you do a deal, you're just gonna sell the company. The name of it, say mine's PR Investments, so I'm gonna sell PR Investments to the cash buyer, and that means every contract that PR Investment holds, well, they get it because they own the company now. That means every time I go do a deal, I gotta make a new LLC. Depending on your state, that can get costly. Some LLCs, $300, $400, $500 to file. Other states, it can be $50. So them are the ways to get around Oklahoma, Illinois laws: double close, sell the LLC, or do virtual wholesaling, or just get licensed. But as for double closing, I do lots of double closings. Like I said, my title company's awesome. It's like, bread and butter. I mean, it's a well-oiled machine. They're used to it. It's quick. It's easy. It's a win-win for everybody. I don't have all the headaches of you're making too much, or the seller complaining. It's just I like it. It works for me. Assignments are great too when I can do them, because that's less paperwork for me, and it's just one page and I'm done, and that's it. So I hope this video simplified, explained double closing, because I can't really simplify it more than what I just did. As a new wholesaler, yes, my first couple deals were double closes. I mean, that's just what I did, because I was making so much money, and I was freaking out that they would complain at closing, and I didn't want to miss out on, the almost 20 grand on my first deal. My first deal was 20 grand. It netted 19,653 because I hate double closing costs. That's why I did it, though. I was just scared that, holy cow, I'm gonna make 20 grand, and they're going back out at closing, and then I don't know what I'm gonna do, because I rage quit and I needed that money. So but most people can assign, so you really just need to focus on assignment of contracts. Unless you're in Oklahoma or Illinois, you don't have to really worry about this double closing so much. I feel like more people make excuses of, well, I don't really know what double closing is, so I can't start wholesaling. Yeah, you can. I mean, you need to worry about A, B, C before you get to X, Y, Z. The first thing as a new wholesaler should be, do I have a title company that's investor friendly? Because I need to be able to put a title company on my contract before I even send it to a homeowner. And next thing is you need leads. I mean, if you ain't got no leads to buy houses, I mean, why are you worrying about double closing and all this other nonsense and taxes, and why? You got to worry about ABC. So find an investor-friendly title company right out the door. You got to have one. Then start working on your marketing method, whatever you're going to use, whatever type of lead list you're going to use. Worry about that. If you're in Oklahoma and Illinois, okay, you're going to have to either double close, sell the LLC, get licensed, or do virtual in another state so you can assign. But simplify this. You guys don't overthink it. Most of you do. And I tell you not to. The more you keep this simple, because it is a very simple process. Simple and easy is not the same, so don't confuse the two. But being consistent every day and keeping it simple will get you deals. Overcomplicating, freaking out, making excuses, chasing rabbits down the rabbit hole of negativity, you're never going to get out of your 9 to 5 or get deals done. I'm sorry, you're just not. You got to stay out of your own way. Keep it simple. Watch these videos over and over. Take notes. fill out these contracts. Just go through and fill them out for fun until you know how to fill it out comfortably without having to go back and watch my video on how to fill it out. That way, when the time comes, you know, when you do have that lead, you're not freaking out because you've already filled out your contracts hundreds of times or whatever. So practice and just stay consistent. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it cleared the air on what the hell double closing is that I always talk about. So like, share, follow, subscribe, all that good shit. And I'll make another video here in a few days, and let's keep on selling paper.